Hey guys, so today Peter and I are going to talk about Christ consciousness. Like, what is consciousness? What is Christ consciousness? So as soon as this comes on, I will invite Peter to join me. And so I've been working with Peter for the last several months, and he grew up reading the Bible and going to Christian church, and he has read the Bible several times. He's also read other spiritual texts, and he has a deep understanding about the hidden messages in the Bible. So I'm really excited to be having these conversations with him and with you guys. So let's see where he's at. For some reason, it takes a couple minutes. Oh, there we go. To have people show up. So there is Pete coming on now. We're going to talk about consciousness. What is Christ consciousness? What is consciousness in general? So welcome, Peter, and thank you for your time today.
Yes.
So I was just sharing that we're going to talk about Christ consciousness and consciousness. So I'm going to start with asking you, what is consciousness? And then we'll go into the Bible verse that we're going to talk about today.
Good question. When I think about consciousness, I think about it, or I define it as the awareness of being. When something is conscious, it means that it has an awareness that I exist. And there are levels of consciousness. So a person's awareness of being is, for example, I'm aware that I'm a human. That's awareness of being a human or a human being. Or I'm aware that I'm a spirit. That's the awareness that I'm a spirit being. Or I'm aware that I'm a soul. Or I'm aware that I am source, Christ consciousness. So conscious.
So just thinking about it, so even like to a simple way of looking at it would be like being conscious. So you're talking about big levels, and then conscious of every choice even. So you're being able to be kind of that observer and be like, okay, so I can have the choice to say this, or I could have the choice to say that. Whereas if we don't take time to separate that consciousness, then we'll just keep impulsively acting.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. So a key, to your point, a key instrument of consciousness is awareness and attention. Attention is the tool, attention and intention, right? Attention and intention are the tools of the soul. And awareness essentially is when we recognize those tools. So to your point, a person can be conscious of many things. You can be conscious of yourself. Can be conscious of your thoughts. You can be conscious of what's happening in your surrounding. But all of this consciousness are predicated on one type of consciousness, one key consciousness, and it's the awareness of who we are, identity, right? Because it's from that awareness that we make meaning, or we decide to, where we point our attention is always predicated on what we think ourselves to be, and how we decipher as well what we are paying attention to.
That's
And our,
oh, go ahead.
as well as our intentions, right? They're all predicated on what we think we are, who we think we are.
Yes, that's a perfect segue into the Bible verse that we're going to talk about today. So, would you be willing to tell us what the Bible verse is, and then we'll go into it?
For sure, yes. So today we're going to be discussing Philippians 2:5-7, and it's Paul writing to the Philippians, and he's saying, "Let the same mind that was in Christ be in you." That's the first line, and we could read it if we have some time. So 5 says, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal to God." 7, "But made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men."
So, I want to go to the very beginning one, and it says the mind of Christ. And so, is that like the consciousness of Christ? Is that what that's saying?
Yes. What that is telling us is that Christ had a specific mindset about himself, and not just himself, but everything in existence. And Paul is telling us that we need to have, in order for us to attain to that level that Jesus, Yeshua, attained, we have to have the mind that Christ had, which was Christ consciousness. He was conscious of who he was and who he is. And sometimes, when I refer to the person of Jesus, I think that there's some misconceptions or misunderstanding because of the name Christ. Jesus is the Christ because he embodied what it is to exhibit Christ consciousness. So it's not like his last name is Christ. It's like saying Jesus. It's like saying Jesus Buddha. Here, Christ consciousness is the same as Buddha consciousness. So he just exhibited a nature, a characteristic that then tagged onto his name, Jesus the Christ, Jesus Christ, or Yeshua the Christ. And I guess,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we could always, say the same thing about any one of us. We have titles tagged to the end of our names, like Doctor this or PhD this or MBA this, blah blah blah. So for him, at that point in time, they tagged his title was the Christ. So Yeshua or Jesus the Christ. That was his acclamation.
And so, is that something that we can all attain? Is Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness?
In actuality, we are already that. We just need to become what we are already, right? By stripping away all of the by not I think stripping away is too much of a stretch to say. By learning from the containers that we've created from ourselves, then we release those containers and we return to our original state of Christ consciousness. When we begin to learn, we've created containers. I am a this, I am a that, I'm a thing. And we learn that we're not really that thing. We just said we are that thing in order to experience what it's like. I am a girl, I'm a boy, we made ourselves into those things in order to experience what it like to be in a human form. However, we can remove or strip away the containers when we have learned our lessons from those experiences. We return to our original nature as Christ, original state.
So, so that would go back to the 5. So it's Philippians 2:5-7, right? So 5 is let this mind be in you, which was also in Jesus, Christ Jesus. So then, is there anything more that you want to say about the embodiment of Christ consciousness? I mean, I get that we're already Christ consciousness and embodying more of those qualities of what he was teaching us, like to be leading with love and to help to accelerate our growth. When we look at the scale by David Hawking with the vibrational chart that starts with our consciousness levels. So it's like anger and despair and then desire and then neutrality and joy and love and acceptance down here. And then we go all the way up to Christ consciousness. And so say that we were to start raising our vibration, what would happen in our lives, our day-to-day lives, do you think?
Yes. So the thing that happens when a person starts to raise their vibration is that reality begins to shift. So the lessons come faster. They show up as challenges or tests, trials. They begin to appear more faster in life, thought forms that we have to process. Because what it means when a person is raising their vibrational frequency is that they are raising their energy, their internal energy. It means that they are able to observe their thoughts. When we raise our internal energy, we extricate ourselves from our mind, from the trap, from the matrix. The mind is sort of where we typically keep ourselves because we're constantly viewing our experiences through the lens of our thoughts. So as we raise our energy, we extricating ourselves from the mind matrix or the mental matrix. And what happens when we extricate ourselves is that all of those thoughts begin to present themselves, and our reality begins to outpicture the nature of our thoughts. So we can learn the lessons. And as we learn those lessons, that's not the right way to think. Or, oh, yes, that was what I should have done. As we learn and extract the wisdom, our vibration increases more until we attain to that level of the state of being that is Christ consciousness, or the ascension, the state of ascension.
So I know you and I have been talking a lot about the hero's journey, and what we're creating is that similar line, and we're calling it the soul's sacred mission. And just looking at that's the calling, right? Is that space of starting to step into this new way of thinking and this new way of being. And so just thinking about, as we've been doing this work that we've been doing, and it's nice to hear that as you're raising your consciousness, lessons come faster. Because I'm like, holy cow, there's a lot of lessons in the last 5 to 6 months. So, but remembering in this process of raising our consciousness and shifting our belief systems and our layers of our ego, remembering to be gentle with ourselves, because it is a process and sometimes it's a little shaky and rocky. And so it's nice to have a community to be growing with and understanding these bigger things that are happening, because a lot of times it's so much bigger than us and we've never experienced these things before, so we have no concept of what we're even stepping into, so it can be a little scary. So I'm very grateful for these conversations and our time together and our whole community. We're very blessed. Do you have anything more to say before we move on to 6?
Let's move on.
Cool. So 6 is, who, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God.
Yes. And you know, that's it. That sentence, when we're younger, we sort of, and to your point, Katie, we are trained to disidentify from equating ourselves to divinity. And it's something in religion that is called deification of Christ, making Christ alone take the image of God. However, when we think about it, everything in creation is God taking on one form or the other. The birds, the animals, the plants, the rock, you know, ourselves, our bodies, everything is like on the phone. Everything we see is a pixel. So everything in existence is God taking on one form to have a particular experience. The planet, it's all God taking on different forms. So who being in the form of God, he thought it not robbery to equate himself to God. Each one of us are in the form of God. So there's no robbery when we think of the fact that we are all in that form of God. When we come out of our costumes, we recognize that we are all source. In esotericism, the way they say it is, I scatter myself or I spread myself to make all of creation, yet I still exist. So even though God has outpictured himself in the material dimension, it doesn't mean that God doesn't exist as, you know, consciousness in itself, as an intelligence in the universe. So God created, not he, God made everything. You know, that's biblical lingo, you know. So Source created everything. However, Source still remains, you know, viewing everything or observing everything that it's created. So there, I think the key thing is that there is no separation. We are all connected. We are all Source taking on different forms.
Yes, and I really appreciated what we were talking about earlier when it comes to that everything is a form of God. And I often think that also sometimes I'll forget that everybody is also the outpicturing of God, right? And so I really liked earlier you said that everything we do is impacting others, right? And so it's like, I think that we often forget that in, because there, you know, we have so many interactions and things that we're doing. And so there's that of remembering that everything, even the people we're interacting with, are God. And then thinking too about that consciousness, right? And how different places hold different consciousness. Like we've talked about, Peter, you say, you know, you pick up this cup of coffee and you think, oh, I just love the coffee. And so now you're imprinting this thought in the mug. So the next person that picks up this mug is going to have those loving thoughts. And so thinking that everything is God, and what is God is energy and vibration and connection, and we're all one. So it's pretty cool to have these expansive conversations and be able to see deeper into reality. Lori's on here watching right now, and yesterday she said, I could just sit and watch the wind blow through the trees and I was like, I'm being so much gratitude, right? I myself have not taken the time to have that much gratitude for that part of God, but if we could see that in everything, imagine how much passion we would live. And so, and you know, whatever we focus on, God brings more of, or the universe or source. So if we're focusing on that gratitude and love and that type of energy, imagine what ripple effects and vibrations we'll be sending out that will impact others and all of the material items around us, which also has ripple effects as well. So is there anything more that you want to say about being equal to God, or that vibration, or?
Yeah, I think one clear distinction there, we talked about it, is, sometimes a person might feel like they have
Mm.
exclusivity to sauciness, so to speak, but it's not exclusive. We all share the same identity. There's only one, self, there's only one soul, and we are all that one soul. We are all that one ocean. It's not exclusive to one person, like, oh, only that one person is God and the rest. So it's that distinction that you painted the right picture, that being able to recognize God in everything, even in technology, God is, when we begin to recognize that, we see synchronicities even in technology, because it's still the outpicturing of the mind of God, right? So yeah, to your point, anything that we want more of, we have to begin to experience that. And it's a prayer, right? If a person is experiencing joy in whatever they're using, or whatever they whatever event, they're essentially saying, I want more of this.
Yeah, whether good or bad, right? I do believe that we create our own heaven or hell on the earth based off of our thinking, because it is a vibrational universe. So um, I'm going to kind of digress here a second. But with the moon um, event that just happened with the lunar eclipse, they say when there's a full moon, they'll say, oh, it makes people crazy. And in my studies, I found that it doesn't make you crazy. It just enhances what you already are on your baseline. So you may pretend to be cool, calm, and collected. However, if there's a full moon, your true self, if you're not doing the work, is possibly going to come out.
Yeah.
Um, Also, one of my girlfriends, she says her prayer when she's having a hard time with another person is, God, bless them and help me, like fix me, bless them and fix me, because it might be my own way of viewing, because I may not be viewing the situation from the right mind, a higher state mind. I may be viewing it from my own conditioning and patterning, so I may not be seeing the truth of the situation, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Typically, when we interact with other people, is just recognizing that there's a bubble around us and there's a bubble around the other person, and all we are doing is projecting what we think about that impulse that we're receiving from that person, from that individual. And so each person is, sometimes I give the example of putting two phones together, and behind of this phone is our soul, behind of the other person is the soul, and each person is just looking on this type of a mirror and trying to paint a picture of what they're seeing, but they're actually looking at the other person through their own glass, through their own lens, through their own screen. So to your point, the ability to recognize that the other person is on their own journey, looking at life through their own mirror, through their own lens, and making decisions through their own lens, makes a person release the need to control, or release the judgments that we can place on another person's experience, another soul's experience. We recognize that that soul is going through their own journey of self-discovery, right, of awakening. So the only thing we can do is to put that positive intention out there. Wow, I'm excited that this person, is on their journey. They might be facing some trials or difficulties, that they will overcome it. They'll transcend, and awaken to being who they truly are as source.
So I really appreciate what you said, and two things. So say that I'm interacting with you, Peter, and you say something, and I'm going to take it whatever way, because it's just my mind. So you may say it and mean it one way, but I'm going to translate it or interpret it based off of my own conditioning or childhood trauma or collaborations, whatever. However, when we can start to separate and do the work, then we can start to see that it's those are just our thoughts and our interpretations, that may not be how they mean it. And then another thing that I've been understanding too is, like, say that you and I are having a disagreement about something, then maybe on my internal self, I'm having a disagreement with something, and then I'm projecting that vibration, and so it's causing that relationship shift. But that may be for another time too. But I think that it's fun to start seeing life from that observer's perspective, and realizing that we get to choose in every moment that we're conscious and aware.
Yes, and to your point, a person would not be in that state, the observer mode, when they are blended with their experience. when they become part of the experience, when they are, like we teach archetypal psychology, right? When they are fused with their archetypes.
Yes, so it's great to be doing the work so that we can transcend our limiting beliefs and some of the ways that we may have used to express ourselves. So we do have one more verse. Are you ready to move to the next? Cool. So, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. To me, this says that Jesus chose to come here to not to be like, oh, I'm Jesus, but to help us to understand that we can embody that consciousness as well. Oh, for some reason I can't hear you. Oh, you're muted. So maybe the bottom left. Somewhere on your screen there should be a microphone to push. I don't know how to unmute you. Maybe you should go out and come back in, but there should be a little microphone somewhere on your screen because it got pushed once. Good morning, Juliana. Because we still can't hear you. And I can see that it's muted. Okay, so Peter's going to come right back. I don't know how I got muted, but again, the Bible verse that we're studying is Philippians 2:5-7. And 7 is, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. Okay, so I'll switch it back over to you, Peter.
Yes. So for each one of us, when we think about it, the whole idea of our soul incarnating is what we call involution evolution. Like we all come out of the source, we all emanate from the source. So we're all source in nature. And we go all the way down, we descend all the way down in our vibration to the material dimension to become human, to have a human experience, all the way down, layers and layers and layers of our consciousness. We descend into low vibration. And we descend into low vibration. When we recognize ourselves, we wake up in the low vibration. We recognize that there's only one thing to do, to serve. Because when an individual recognizes themselves as equal to source, infinity, you recognize you have everything already within you. You become self-satisfied. There's nothing else you need for yourself. There's nothing else that makes you happy but the fact that you are source. There is no really seeking for anything because everything is already contained within. So the only thing that brings more pleasure is to make other people recognize the truth. When somebody else gets the truth, and the example we give, Katie, remember, is like everyone is in this building and they're all, having fun, or just hanging around. And a few people recognize that, oh, there's fire in the building. These few individuals would not just like say, oh, there's fire in the building and leave the building and leave the rest of the 50 something people there. They'll wake them up. Hey guys, there's fire. Let's leave the building, right? And it's the same thing with the awakening. When an individual awakens in the matrix, the only thing on their mind is, how do we awaken other people to make them recognize that, hey, you are source, you have all the abundance within you, everything you're seeking for is within you, it's not external of you. And so live from that place, from that space as well. So in this context, becoming a servant is to serve other people to awaken, to enable other people to ascend in vibration frequency, to recognize their true identity, as source and as infinite beings.
Yes, and so thinking about that, because we both lived in the normal world where you had to go to work and do these things and perform and blah blah blah. And when we start to shift our vibration and we have this calling, do we often still continue life the same way, or do we implement new practices? Does life start to shift for us? What have you noticed in your Sacred Souls missions journey?
That's a good question. I believe strongly that it depends on how close a person's unawakened life or conditioned life approximates their soul's purpose. If, for example, their soul's purpose is to be, you know, a successful or to be a painter, and they were fortunate to find it when they were younger, then there isn't too much change in their reality as they awaken. But sometimes, unfortunately, there are people who might be completely out of their soul's assignment or soul's purpose. And when their reality, when they start to awaken, they start on the hero's journey, everything breaks down because everything is not everything is not in line. You know, they find that the job is not working. You know, maybe the boss is like, you know, everything becomes triggered. The boss is like, we don't need you in the office again, blah blah blah. The relationship is not working. The partner says, I'm leaving. You know, everything begins to break down. Maybe the city they are in as well, they find out, oh, you know, their house gets taken, whatever, right? And they have to move somewhere else. So when an individual takes the call to to put their feet on the path of the sacred mission, the soul sacred mission, if they were in line before, slightly in line with their soul's purpose, then they wouldn't see so much of the drastic changes. However, if they were out of sync, then reality begins to take on a new form, destroying the old to recreate the new.
Yeah, when I was in California a couple of years ago, and I owned a home here in Oregon, and also I was homeless in my car in California. And I did manifest a place to stay on a woman's couch for like 5 weeks of the 2 months, so I wasn't really homeless. And in that, just going through a lot of emotions and thoughts and like just so much. And I remember talking to a friend in Idaho, Megan. She's very spiritual and religious, and she was like, Katie, you're basically going through a midlife crisis because your life is changing. You're becoming a new version of yourself. And most people would go buy a new motorcycle, and you're actually going into it. And so, congratulations for going into it. And so, just knowing that there are a lot of big shifts in the world, and it really is important for us to be in that state so that when those drastic changes happen, we realize that ebb and flow is a part of life. And so, it's not so, it may be drastic like the last 6 months. I've had a lot of really big things, and also, I know that I'm able to maintain my sanity and my mental health because of the practices and the different things and the community. So it's really beautiful to be able to see that as we do the work and we start to embody more of our source self than and our soul self than our 3D human self, then we start to experience life in a whole new way. And I feel like it's a lot more of a state of gratitude and being the leader of our own lives. Right now, there's a lot going on in the government. And when we have a nation of self-governing people or nations of self-governing people, imagine what kind of changes that we can bring to humanity. And so, because we are all one and we are all into it together. So I think Jesus told us that it's our job to take care of one another. So here we are. Do you have more to say on that one, Peter?
Just one thing. I know we are 2 minutes past time. Just one statement, call to action, is take the call, pick up the call. You know, for each one of us, Source right now is calling people to awaken, souls to awaken, light workers, star seeds to awaken, to recognize who we truly are. And it's important to take the call because it only gets easier. Life only gets easier afterwards. After all of the shaking and everything, it only becomes much easier because we are in our true essence, in our true power.
Yes, yes. And remembering to be gentle with ourselves as we take this journey, because it's worth it. It's not always easy, but it's definitely always worth it. And sometimes, most every time, you have to break down to break through. It's just the way that it is. We have to go out and find our soul's mission and come back and share it with the world. And so it's just the hero's journey that we're all on. So I agree, Peter. Thank you for that call to action to picking up the phone. So I know you often reference The Matrix, and if you haven't seen The Matrix, definitely watch it. And yeah, it's amazing. Thank you for your time today, Peter, and thank you everybody for being on here and watching the recording, and we look forward to continuing to grow together. Much love, Facebook family.
Thank you.